Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the February 9th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are tuned in on Instagram Live. Hopefully, I got that little shimmery uh, filter, whatever was popping off last week. Hopefully, that's fixed for the day. Shout out to those who are watching on Facebook Live. And last but not least, props to those who are watching on YouTube Live. Everybody should head on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Again, at some point, I'm probably never going to monetize off this. I don't even know if I necessarily do it for the bread. Shout out to Chris. I need you to come and fix my garage. You know what I mean? That's something we gonna have to have a conversation about. Chris know me since I was a youngster. Shout out to him. Uh, so listen, we're gonna get right into it, man. Listen, I watched Judas and the Black Messiah last night. I'm not gonna do no spoilers on here because I know how y'all operate, man. I know how frustrated and upset y'all get when somebody do a spoiler. So I'm just gonna say it's definitely a must see. Uh, I think it acts as an entry point for those of you who are unfamiliar with the chairman, Fred Hampton. Um, and also just with regards to that story, the informant, and how all of that went down, man. Something poignant came out of it that a homie of mine had mentioned, and it's just how it's not necessarily the crabs in the barrel mentality that do us in, but it's the ones that we love who are close to us and the effects that might have on us and that can have on us. And if when you watch the movie, if you're not familiar with the Fred Hampton story, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But hopefully, I'm able to have a conversation, an in-depth, poignant conversation on that sometime next week. Shout out to Chris. Chris, listen, man. He went on over to YouTube. He hit that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate him. He said that he started watching Malcolm and Marie this morning. I don't even know if I should say kudos to you, brother, or Godspeed, protect your peace. I don't know. I'm a firm believer that there's enough data, enough information out here that lets us know what we getting into before we get into it. So yeah, you watch Malcolm and Marie. I don't want to hear you say you triggered, brother. I don't want to hear you say you feel some type of way just because and I say that because I've seen so many people talk about their anger and frustration with this movie Malcolm and Marie and how it's abusive. An abusive, toxic relationship on both ends, and that's enough for me not to see it. Now, see, I got duped. I got duped in the watching Queen and Slim. I went and saw that, and I was so taken aback by Queen and Slim that I wrote a think piece on it. I was like, yo, this is just trauma built up. It was trauma with lipstick on. And if you're not familiar with the analogy of a pig with lipstick on, it's still a pig, right? And Queen and Slim was still a pig. What are you talking about, Tamara Delbridge? You're saying that it was good. If you talking about Malcolm and Marie, I think we might have to book you for some therapeutic sessions over at quantifyllc.net. Just again, why are we considering trauma and unhealthy relationships? Even though I don't know if that's what you're talking about, why do we consider that good? That type of material, that type of content, good, and that is what you're talking about. Yeah, you gonna have to book some sessions. I'll give you a little discount if you could get my makeup right for rhetorically speaking. Yeah, we romanticize toxic relationships in in our community, and I understand where that comes from because we many of no. I'm not going to say that. I don't understand where it comes from because there are so many examples of healthy, loving relationships. It's not to say that we don't have ups and downs. There aren't relationships that are unhealthy, that are toxic, but I don't think Hollywood does a good job of highlighting those type of relationships. Hence the reason why. What's the soundtrack that I play all the time? what Issa Rae and Lakeith Stansfield, whatever his name is, Lakeith, who was in Judas and the Black Messiah. I want to say that the photograph. I'm about to say the Notebook. Even though I cried off the Notebook, the photograph was it had levels of trauma in it for sure, right? Because you can't avoid trauma, and especially when we're talking about entertainment, there needs to be some type of conflict. I get it in order for it to sell, but how do you manage that in a movie? Is that the overarching theme, or is that just something that's present? But in the case of the photograph, love is at the center. The same thing with Sylvie's love, right? We understand that there was some trauma there existing in the midst of their relationship, but still love remained at the forefront. I can't necessarily comment on Malcolm and Marie. I may watch it at some point if I want to do a deep dive. Kayla says, I understand it's written by a white guy attempting to tell our story. That makes it even more interesting, right? That makes it even more interesting and compelling because we know that white folk be trying to tell our stories. And usually when they tell our stories, it's what we're going to be talking about later. It's either that slave love, that struggle love, which isn't necessarily reflective of what actually takes place in our community. Thanks, Marcel. Definitely appreciate you reminding me of the photograph. And the more that we can watch movies like the photograph, I'm not going to say there's not a place for movies like Malcolm and Marie, but for so long, the black love has been written from a trauma induced perspective, right? And here Tamara Delbert telling me about the movie. I haven't seen the movie Queen, and I think no matter how much you write, you know what I mean, you not making me want to watch it anymore. Right? But definitely appreciate you. So I don't even know how I got on this. Oh yeah, because Chris said he started watching Malcolm and Marie. So again, whatever you feel like you need to get from that, you get from it. Me personally, I'm just not here for recreational trauma and calling it entertainment. So that's just where I'm at with it. But listen, we're gonna get right into this conversation, man, because this was something that I didn't know I was gonna be talking about tonight, but it's been like a firestorm topic the last several days, and that is Gorilla Glue Gate. Now, I'm not going to call this young lady Gorilla Glue Girl because she's a person, man, and I feel like we dehumanize people when we give them some corny, cliche catchphrase, even if it's fitting. We still want to center her because it's easy to forget about the individual when we have names like Gorilla Glue Girl. It's much harder to dehumanize and demean and to disrespect somebody when you're using their name, or at least in theory it should be. So we're gonna call her Tessica Brown because that is her name, Tessica Brown. And so apparently, Tessica Brown, a 40-year-old TikToker, used Gorilla Glue spray on her hair sometime last month. And a few days ago, she made a video talking about how her hair has not moved in the last month. The Gorilla Glue is still there. Full disclosure, I've used Gorilla Glue before. I've used it to I've used it to glue the side mirror onto my charger when it got knocked off. I refuse. I like Martin said. I ain't got the five. I ain't had a 150. I had the 150. I didn't want to pay the 150 to get my mirror put back on. So what did I do? I got me some Gorilla Glue, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still on there. That's because I know about Gorilla Glue. Now for Tessica Brown, I can't speak to whether she knew about how Gorilla Glue gives it up out here in these streets. I'm not going to get into a gender thing. I'm not going to get into a masculinity type of conversation about it. I just happen to know. And I'm sure some people who don't know what Gorilla Glue is, but if you got something broken and you want it fixed forever, you go get Gorilla Glue. Now, the reason why I'm talking about it is not necessarily about the act of her using Gorilla Glue and Gorilla Glue spray, because I think it's important that spray aspect. Her using Gorilla Glue spray to lay down her edges, to lay down her hair in lieu of the spritz that she typically uses. And the reason why I say it's important, and it took a black woman who let me know about this today because she posted about it on my post denouncing those who have been dehumanizing Tessica Brown and saying such negative things about her because of the poor choice that she made. There's something called Gorilla Knot spray or snot spray, Gorilla Snot Glue or something like that with a little monkey on the cover of it. And I looked at it and I see it looks just like Gorilla Glue. And I'll get into the lawsuit a little bit later when I have that conversation. But shout out to Adiza for showing me that because I had no idea that existed. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Tessica Brown was trying to get, she thought it was Gorilla Snot spray. Instead, she got this spray. I'm not going to do that. I do know women use glue and some things in their hair. I don't pretend to understand because I stay out of black women business, especially when it comes to their hair. That's just not my bag, right? But she made this video. She ended up going viral, and we know that if once something goes viral, there's going to be your detractors. There's everybody has an opinion. Again, hence the reason why we are here. And so she has this Gorilla Glue in her hair for a month. So she ended up going to the hospital to get checked out. And apparently they put the whatever remover that you use to try and get it out. That was also the recommendation that came from the Gorilla Glue people. They're like, hey, listen, we're sorry to hear that. Use some water, try and wash it out. Last count, I think she said she washed her hair about 20 some odd times. Subsequently, tomorrow she's going to be flying out to Beverly Hills to see a black plastic surgeon, Dr. Michael Obang. And I want to salute Dr. Michael Obang, whether he's doing this for publicity, I don't give a damn. The fact that he saw an opportunity to help this black woman in the midst of a traumatic experience that she's facing, right? And he's lending his services, again, nothing but love to him. A GoFundMe was started on her behalf. To date, she has raised over $15,000 to go towards medical bills, because we recognize everybody doesn't have insurance, and even if sometimes insurance isn't enough, right? But I think that's something that's underlying here that people aren't really thinking about as they spit their vitriol towards 40-year-old Tessica Brown, right? And as Chris said, she's considering suing the makers of Gorilla Glue by claiming that the product's label does not specifically warn against use on hair. Now, with that said, and the reason why I decided to have a conversation on this tonight, I was appalled by the community response, especially from the black community, right? I saw a post saying that she was an idiot. Her stupidity has her in this mess. Instead of suing, she needs to get a job. Right? She's doing this for attention. Well, I mean, it's everybody's on social media, right? Everybody's on social media. The purpose on being on social media, no matter what lie you tell yourself, is for attention. You're either here to inform or you're here to perform. And for many of us, we try to do both. But folks saying she here for attention. Saw some folk comparing this to those who injected themselves with bleach due to Trump's nonsense, what he said. And I was floored, right? I was floored just because of the lack of community empathy for your fellow human being. The lack of humanity for somebody who makes an unhealthy choice. Now, I ain't been to church in some years. I ain't shabak the Lord in a long time. But I do think it's something in what y'all call the Bible, right? That thing, that book of words. Great stories, great fables. Something like, let ye without sin cast the first stone, or 50 Cent said it too. If you live in a glass house, watch your mouth. Something like that. You know what I'm talking about. Or does the old folks say, you walking around like your ish don't stink? So you sitting here dehumanizing this black woman because she used Gorilla Glue spray in her hair. Poor decision on her part. But you can't muster up just a little bit of empathy to say, damn, that's messed up. You don't have that in you. But yet, you have all the capacity in the world to shame her for her unhealthy, poor decision. I sit and think, for someone who believes in community building, how does that free us in any way? How does that help us in any way? I see what the good doc from Beverly Hills is doing. I see how he's helping in the movement because he's showing care, no matter what the residual effects might be for his business. He's taking the time out. See, we offer our thoughts and prayers, and we offer empathy that don't matter. But yet we see this black woman who made a bad decision for whatever reason. We don't know the impetus for this. We don't know if it was, hey, you know what? This Gorilla Glue is sitting here in the aisle. And again, that frustrates me because people are like, she didn't read the label. Did she get that in the hair care department? How many times you done walked in Walmart and you saw a loaf of bread where the A shirts are? We don't call them wife beaters anymore because that's politically incorrect. But you see a loaf of bread near the A shirts. You see some tangerines near the magazine. Right? How do we know that it wasn't in the black hair care aisle? In that little section that they got behind the glass? Because we know that's where they put the Negroes. That's where they put our items. How do we know it wasn't in her house already? And she saw it was like, hey, you know what? This looked like that Gorilla Snot Glue. Let me use this. Because clearly she used it a month ago, right? Now, I don't know if she made a video about that. Y'all can inform me. But she waited a month to come out and talk about this? That doesn't sound like somebody that's craving attention in the way that y'all make it seem. Right? Again, it just shows how far we have to go. I said on my Facebook post, folk acting holier than thou. You better not ever make a mistake. You better be Einstein out here on these streets. And we know that this type of mindset is taught. So your kids better have hands. Because they're going to make fun of somebody that makes a mistake. And they're going to get punched in their mouth. I bet you want all the empathy then at that point, right? Like, when did we evolve into this? To where we cannot see the humanity in another. You know, it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating because the same people I see criticizing this young woman are the same folk who mad about gun violence. They're frustrated about so many other things when at the root of it all is respecting and loving humanity. No, it's not acknowledging her quote unquote foolishness. But what it is recognizing that, you know what, I can have empathy from somebody who didn't make a good decision. And like, who are you? That's the thing. It's like the unmitigated gall. Like, who made you the gatekeeper of who can sue? Somebody commented on my post, we got to pay for this. I ain't got to pay for But it just shows you how capitalism works. How much it costs to make that Gorilla Glue? About what, 25, 50 cents maybe? They sell it for 8, 10, 15, $20. Y'all worried about money that these capitalistic mofos are out here stealing from the people. Have sis thinking that she wrong because she's debating on suing because it doesn't explicitly state not for hair care use. Again, why are you worried about somebody suing? Like, what business of it is yours? It doesn't make sense. But I get it. People watch a little Ally McBeal. Y'all watch the second half of the regular Law and Order where they go to trial. You see some Jack McCoy and you know it, right? You know it. But just to school you, under Louisiana products liability law, if an unreasonably dangerous product causes harm during reasonably anticipated use, the manufacturer of that product can be held liable for damages sustained by the user. Right? So this is the people that say, well, it says on there, this is his intended use. This is the proper use. That's not the same as reasonably anticipated use. So let me give you an example because this helped me understand it just a little bit more. So let's talk about the use of a chair and using it as a step stool. How many of you have done that to change a light bulb? Chairs are for sitting, right? But people sometimes stand on them. And so manufacturers are legally required to think of or to foresee such misuses and to protect against them. So what does that mean in our chair example? Do not use to stand on. What does this mean potentially for this product in this lawsuit if she just decides to attempt to sue? This Gorilla Snot glue or gel or spray, that could potentially be used, right? That can be used as an example. As it says, she would need to introduce evidence that other individuals have been known to use glue as she did, or that perhaps that Gorilla Glue knew consumers might try to do so. When we talking about this spray, if they got both products right here, does she have a case? Chris says, but who is she suing? Gorilla Glue. Because it's the idea that it's their responsibility to put on their item. Potential uses and misuses of it. It's called CYA. Right? Marla says Grace isn't the wave of social media and groupthink. It's all fake news. Everybody has perspective shaped by perceptions and the mindsets of others. Completely agree. Completely agree. And so, looking forward, I mean, hope is that this changes. Hope is that we see some improvement in our ability to think as individuals and not as a collective, where we're able to look at every situation as a teachable moment. This could be a teachable moment if you take a step back from shaming this black woman and look at it. Hey, you know what? Maybe this is a conversation that we should be able to have. Maybe reading things in its entirety, but we make some assumptions, right? We here in Philadelphia, a third of third graders can't read. Again, these underlying assumptions that exist. I'm not saying whether Tessica Brown can read or not. But hey, could be one of the reasons why she used that. Or maybe confused it with the Gorilla Snot glue. Sunshine says Gorilla Glue isn't sold in the hair aisle. Again, the example I use, how many times have you been walking around Walmart and you saw stuff in places it shouldn't have been? See, again, Chris, you say it's covered. I just went through the whole thing, brother. It's your responsibility as a company. It could get thrown out. A jury or a judge can say there's no merit here. Right? But you know what's going to happen? Gorilla Glue going to come out and they're going to put hair on there. Do not use in your hair. Just in case. Because they don't want this happening again. Again, is there any accountability for the user? Accountability in what way? She made a bad mistake. I think accountability is you got to go first. You got this month long hair stuck in one place. You got some hair follicle head damage, right? She can't escape this. She can't escape those consequences for her actions. But when we talking about product, that's incumbent upon the business. And when we talking about humanity, it's incumbent upon us to recognize that if what it is that we say we want in the world is aligned with how we respond to situations that may be a little atypical, that we can still extend that type of grace. I hope she cash out from Gorilla Glue. Like, why wouldn't you want sis to cash out from Gorilla Glue? Because again, we talk about that oppressive mindset. She got to work hard to get her bread. Outside of all the advantages that these white folk had with Gorilla Glue, to be able to put themselves in a position to create Gorilla Glue, the black sister got to work hard. She got to get a job. Right? I look at this My Pillow fiasco. I never thought about getting a My Pillow because I saw my man mustache. It just wasn't a trustworthy mustache. So now everybody boycotting My Pillow. One of the Parkland shooting survivors, he posted about how he's making a pillow company. And everybody's like, oh, let's get behind him. Let's throw all our money here. Because that's what they do. Right? They gonna throw their money behind this little white kid. Because he has this story of experiencing trauma, being resilient. He's a national speaker on gun violence. Now, listen, I'm not going to minimize what happened at Parkland. But Lil Tamir in North Philly, he experienced gun violence every day. Lil Tamir don't have the investors willing to step up because he experienced something. Now he's in the limelight. They're not putting Lil Tamir in the limelight. They're not saying, let's throw all our money behind Little Tamir and his pillow company. Right? Like look who this society builds up, and look who they tear down. And so to fix your face and say she shouldn't sue these capitalistic motherfuckers who's charging 1,000 times what it takes to make this Gorilla Glue? Y'all showing yourselves your oppressive mind states. Chris says, so McDonald's should serve lukewarm coffee to avoid tongue scoldings. Chris, where you been? You older than me, brother. You haven't seen these motherfuckers suing McDonald's and Starbucks because the coffee was too hot? You need to be explicitly stating, again, and white folk made it this way. It wasn't black folk who said, listen, let's go sue for any and everything. White people have made a living off of doing this. You know what I mean? It's just who has the funds to go and sue. Aggrieved black folk don't necessarily have that type of money to spend on a lawyer. Hence the reason why it's going to be some folk that'll do this pro bono. But yeah, people suing all the time. Trust me. If something go down, I'm suing. Why wouldn't I? What's the goal? Black generational wealth. Like the man said, by any means necessary. Marla says, I think we have stigmas basis around social currency. The fact that a what would have been okay with shame and humor are not okay now that she has, I don't know if that was a fool, but I'm trying to infer what you mean from it. I think we have stigmas basis. We definitely have stigmas around social currency. Yeah. The fact that, she went from having X amount of followers on TikTok and Instagram. Now she caked up. She got hundreds of thousands. It's a tinge of jealousy. Because you see what's not happening in your life. Says it boils down to policing social currency. It was cool to shame and laugh at her, but it's not okay for her to come up, get a blue check at 500,000 followers, but half a check. Exactly. Exactly. So if you take your glasses off to clean them and poke yourself in the eye, putting them back on, the manufacturer should rightfully pay for your eye surgery. Again, what are we talking about here? How sharp is the end of this? Right? If I take these glasses off, and this is an extremely fine point, why do you think they aren't extremely fine points? Why do you think that it is extremely dull here? You don't think somebody potentially got sued because of it, or some type of injury has happened? How many times does companies change their product based off some unforeseen event that takes place? That's what recalls are. You got one baby that died from a bouncer that bounces too high, and the baby comes up out the joint and dies. Uh-oh. Recall. They not going to look at it as, oh, you know what? There's one baby. It's only one baby. I was looking at something recently where something like that took place. And they found that it was cheaper. I want to say it was a car. I want to say it was Ford. That it was cheaper to pay for the deaths of the lawsuits that come from the deaths, than it was for them to fix the problem. And so they paid for the lawsuits. Oh, I forgot what I was just reading. See, again, bold breakthrough. We got to get past it, but Gorilla Glue on your hair. I think that's where we all are. Like, Gorilla Glue on your hair. We got to get past that. Right? We got to look at it. Why is this bottle and why is this bottle? Why do they both look the same? Talking about the Gorilla Snot Glue. The spray. Again, the spray is a lot different. As a business, as a company, you're supposed to account for anything that can go wrong and will go wrong. Again, you say what's next, lighter fluid on your hair. Again, you shaming her when I don't necessarily know if that's called for in this situation. I don't necessarily know what do we accomplish by saying what's next, lighter fluid in your hair? How does that get us to freedom? How does that a teachable moment? Okay, we get the jokes off. What's after the joke? Do we have empathy for people? Or because they don't necessarily fit this nice criteria for our empathy. Matter of fact, you can't make a bonehead decision. Oh, you made one? Again, you say, when do we have common sense? Who decides what common sense is? Who decides what common sense is? Who's the overseer of common sense? If you take Gorilla Glue and you take it somewhere else, if you take it to into a community who's never seen Gorilla Glue before, especially in spray version, and they spray it and they say, oh, this is just like something else that I'm used to. Do they lack common sense because they don't know? Again, it's this white supremacy mindset that so many of us adopt, right? Where we throw out this idea of common sense. What's common to one person isn't necessarily common to the next. We talking about experience. We talk about that with the whole idea of the SATs, where we recognize that it's culturally biased. That's the same argument that white folk made. This is common sense. How do you not know what a sconson is? Keep it real, I never heard of a sconson until an Eagles football player said it, maybe about 5 to 7 years ago, talking about getting sconces in his house. I'm like, what the heck is a sconson? I've never experienced it before. You say she knew. Again, whatever's clever for you, right? I'm whether she knew or whether she didn't know, that doesn't stop me from extending grace and empathy, because I know that it's going to be times where I need the same empathy and grace. And I hope that because I didn't make the right decision, or I didn't use quote unquote common sense, that people aren't going to shun me because of it. Chris, I just read why she might have a case. I just read why she legitimately might have a case when it comes to consumer law, especially in Louisiana. Again, we throw out this idea of common sense. We know people that's book smart and quote unquote plumb dumb all the time because they don't have the necessary exposure. So when somebody says that's common sense, no, what you're saying is I've been exposed to this. It's something that I'm highly aware of, and you should be too. So again, what makes you different than white folk who said the same thing about the SAT? What make you different? Y'all one and the same. Y'all one and the same. And why are y'all so concerned, right? And I guess that's my issue. Like, again, read the label. How do you know that she can read? You say read the label. Label says nothing about hair, right? If there's an argument, a skilled lawyer can make a strong argument. Again, when we're talking about, and you say again, like you can't, even if she made a mistake and she put her in her hair, put it in her, she made the mistake and she used the gorilla glue in her hair. Clearly, you care, right? You can't sit here and make up all these reasons as to why she's wrong and why one can't have empathy for her and she doesn't have common sense. Clearly, if you can get to that point, you care, right? And again, it's well, we're going to be honest. We got to have honest conversations. We can't just dead it by saying we don't care. No, we care. Clearly, as a society, we care. We care enough not to show grace and show empathy for people. Marla says, I've seen crazy glue to repair artificial nails, weave bond glue to apply eyelashes. What is frustrating is this isn't so far off from the practices that occur daily in the name of beauty. Indeed, which starts a larger conversation, right? And I think that's where I saw a post on Twitter who talked about what black women have to go through, right, to make their hair quote unquote acceptable, right? I think there's again, I might not necessarily, for me personally, That might not be the hill I go on, but I'm not a black woman, so I can't speak to that. But what I can do is, yeah, I I feel like, right. I feel like the Eminem scene in 8 Mile, where it's just like where he tells the person he battling everything about him, about himself. Okay, yeah, I know I'm trailer park trash. I know X, Y, and Z. So now what? Now what you want to say? What's left? Unless you're trying to get your ish and giggles off from an unfortunate situation all the way around. And if your goal is to get your ish and giggles off, by all means, do you. But let's not pretend that we're so far and care so much about others. No, our grace and our empathy is contingent upon certain things. Yo, peace to y'all that just tuned in. Listen, I ain't got much left. I might save the Jay-Z conversation for tomorrow. I feel like Jigga Man needs all of my energies. And again, once you get past I guess I'll close with this. Once you get past this idea of, no, and listen, I get it. But I think once we get past this idea, again, the reason why I brought this up is just the lack of empathy and the lack of grace that people are showing, like they ish don't stink out here. Like you don't make mistakes. Right? This goes along that same line of the grammar police who post those pictures of there, and there. You don't know there. I'm a doctoral student and I still get effed up on affect and effect. Can't lie. Google it every time. Used to be ashamed of it. When I go to these colleges and universities, I might have if I have a missing a comma or a period on my PowerPoint, I beat myself up about it. Why? Because that's what happens in society when you make a mistake. And so you end up shaming yourself. You end up shaming yourself because of it. I can't pick and choose when I stand for black folk. Maybe that's a luxury that you have. Some I can't do. So I'm going to stand with Tessica Brown. I'm not going to call her Gorilla Glue Girl. Because I see the humanity in her. All right, I'm out. Y'all be safe.